to Get Real with Asil, a woman empowerment podcast hosted by Asil Al-Baba. They asked me if I think I can speak. I nodded with excitement. Yes, I can. I dressed up, dolled up, and looked so chic. Only to shock them that I wasn't a man. No, you shouldn't. Go home where you belong. A woman like you is nothing but weak. I vowed to myself to prove them wrong, despite that slap on my cheek. Because I realized this journey isn't about me. I still have a long way to go before my peak. Yet, my mission is to help people see that they have the perfect mind, soul, and physique. We could be one word away from world peace. It could be today, tomorrow, or next week. Your words are for you to own, not lease. Look at me. I know you understand. This isn't Greek. The only person you become is the person you decide to be. I'm ready to do this, despite the critique. Because my name is Asil, and I am born to speak. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Get Real with Asil. Today is Monday, May 7th, 2018. I know that it's confusing for you the way I started this podcast, very unconventional of me, but I wanted to give you a glimpse of how I started my recent keynote speech at an event that took place at University of Toronto this last weekend on May 5th. The event was called Yalla, Let's Talk, and it was a very exciting opportunity for me to be sharing some food for thought amongst a group of students about authenticity and the importance of that in our conversations on a day-to-day basis. So the event, just to give you an idea of what it was about, it was meant to empower the Arab millennials and address important topics that are often overlooked or stigmatized in our society. And these topics apply to the broader group, not just Arabs, but we were just having a focus on Arabs given that that's our background. And it was really exciting for me to spend the day with the group of organizers. This event was simply youth-led, which made it just so amazing in the creativity that it just had. Like, the room was filled with little details that was so relatable to our culture and made it look into a cafe, casual sitting and casual style. Very, very well done event, and I commend the organizers behind it. So what I did in that event, I simply shared some food for thought that I thought I will dedicate this episode for as well. Because in my opinion, authentic conversations aren't just important for youth and aren't just important when we're discussing stigmatized topics. Authentic conversations are day-to-day basis. They're very important in our lives. The way we talk to our family members, our partner, our colleagues at work, our clients, and people we see on the street, really. Whatever it is that you spend your day doing and whoever it is you talk to, it's very important to embrace authenticity. And I'll get into my speech right now to tell you about how this theme came about in my life and why I'm passionate about it. So for those of you who don't know, my name is actually Arabic and it actually means authentic. This is where the name of this podcast came about, Get Real with Asil. So it's just simply something that I feel is one of my callings, given that that's what I'm called. And this is something that I really feel speaks to my heart. And the reason being is because I wasn't authentic for a very long period of my life, and the results of that were detrimental. So I'll get into that in a second, but first let me define what I feel living authentically even means so that we can put meaning to that word. I personally think when you're authentic, you're unapologetic about who you are and you're living in alignment with your values. This is how I personally see it. And it's important because it's the truest form of liberation. It's freedom. It's really about self-love and self-worth. And it's the ability to own your identity and just live your truest form of expression with others. this is why and how I see authenticity and why I feel it's important. There's this saying, just be yourself because everyone else is taken. It's a little witty, but it's so true as well. Brené Brown speaks a lot about authenticity. She is one of my favorite authors of all times and speakers as well. And she said, authenticity is a daily practice of letting go of who you are, letting go of who you think you're supposed to be and embracing who you are. I'll say that again since I messed it up. Authenticity is a daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. This is beautifully said, straight to the point, and it pretty much sums up what I was trying to tell you as well. So to take you back on my journey about embracing authenticity, I really have to start all the way in my childhood. And the reason I usually take people there all the way to my childhood is because I feel that this is the truest form of your existence. This is where you're pure before conformity hits us. And as I go back to my childhood, I invite you as well to do this exercise, maybe after this podcast, or if you're listening to this on your commute to work, or maybe later on at night, to just really take some time and reflect about the person you were as a child. What inspired you? What made you happy? What activities did you spend your time doing? All these things. What are the key areas in your life as a child? What did you want to do when you grow up? What were your dreams like? What made you sad? What made you excited? All that stuff. It's good to kind of reflect on that for a bit. Now, when I reflect on my own journey as a child, I was simply somebody who wanted to make a difference. So much so that I believed that my mission is to change the world. And I actually believed it beyond just talking about it. I did business cards and I called myself the changer. And I actually gave these business cards to people in school. I even started writing my name as the changer on exams so the teacher can call me the changer. I just wanted to embody that character in every way possible and stand up for everything that I feel is wrong. So whether it's me fighting for human rights, I would just go up to my neighbor. I remember once my neighbor was beating his wife. I remember this day so vividly because it left such an impact in my brain. And I actually went and knocked on his door and I started fighting with him about how he's not supposed to actually hit his wife and physically abuse her. And I was maybe 7 years old or whatever I was. And then another things I was passionate about was the environment. I hate pollution. I hated people who took the environment for granted. And I would always start cleaning campaigns in school where I would just clean and obviously no one would join me on that mission. I was just solo exploring the issues I want to interfere and make better. So different things like that. That's pretty much how I spent my childhood. And if you watch The Simpsons, the closest character I can relate to is Lisa Simpson, that little weird kid. That was me. And needless to say, at the early stages, I was bullied. I was rejected, and obviously I was standing out in not a comfortable way for me to be. So at that early stage in your life, your identity is heavily relied on how others perceive you. So rejection hurts a lot. And something started shifting in me. So it became really hard to accept not fitting in because it was lonely, it was scary, it was sad, and eventually just confusing and not fun. Who wants to go to school and not feel like they belong amongst their group of friends? So I started wanting to ditch that persona. I started wanting to suppress these ideas I have about making the world a better place and about all these campaigns I want to start about human rights and justice and environment and all that stuff. I just wanted to be a girl who fits in. And now my self-worth solely depended on how others viewed me. And that's typical. That's not something to be so harsh on yourself on. As you're growing in your early stages of development, it's only natural that your identity is heavily reliant on how others perceive you. So I came to Canada at the age of 16, And when I came to Canada, I was starting to face a whole different understanding of what belonging and identity is. Because, you grew up in Lebanon and I didn't fit in amongst my peers, and now I'm in a country where everybody's from a different walks of life. So what does belonging even mean at this stage? But what happened is that my internal conflicts were starting to magnify because I now had added another layer of complexity trying to figure out my identity now that my, all my upbringing is being questioned because I'm in a whole different culture altogether. So I constantly had battles between who I am versus who I thought I want to be. And that's simply because who I am brought me back to that lonely space that no one wanted to share with me. But who I wanted to be was somebody people liked. So I developed an eating disorder and I became bulimic. And now hating myself became life-threatening, really. Bulimia is an eating disorder that involves binging and purging. So it can really have such hard and harsh effects and consequences on your body. And there's nothing worse than rejecting yourself and inflicting self-harm. It really is one of the darkest periods in my life. Without getting so much detail into that, I want to show you how that reflected in other areas in my life. Because my relationship with myself was poor, it was no surprise that I was attracting the wrong men into my life. And by wrong, I either mean just not right for me or straight up fucking psycho. That range, I've experienced it. And I really joke here and I say, aren't relationships like algebra? You look at your ex and you wonder why. But the reason I bring this up actually, and the reason it's important, is because things go full circle. When you have a lesson to learn in life, it keeps reappearing in your life over and over and over again until you learn it. So after my last relationship, which was pretty much the worst out of all my relationships, I realized it was just getting worse. And that's when I had to learn the lesson and finally embrace it. And that for me was that no one in this world is supposed to love you, validate you, and accept you more than you love, validate, and accept yourself. And that's when I started tangibly feeling what real happiness is all about, because now I have a good sense of self-understanding and my life is in alignment with my values. But that's because I went through cycles of experimenting with my identity and experimenting with what makes sense for me and what my authentic self is all about. So gone are the days where now I feel the need to modify my opinion to please anyone else. And gone are the days where I do not stand up for what's right, just like that little girl that I, shed the light on earlier inside of me. She was fearless and she was selfless, and I'm bringing her back into my life. And I always say that, given reflecting on my experience, I feel that we are born knowing who we are, and now we're living our lives trying to remember it. It's so profound, and it's something that just came up for me through reflecting on my experiences. So the reason I shared all that is that you can see the personal lessons that I personally had to learn along the way to reflect while reflecting on my journey. Denying yourself of living your true self is to deny the world your greatness. And I started with this directly to reflect on my self-worth, because this is the cornerstone of your being, and it should be the cornerstone of your reflection. Because before we examine how our conversations are with other people, the conversation starts within. How we talk to ourselves and how we feel about ourselves, how we think about who we are, all contributes to who we show up in life. Who do we show up at work? Who do we show up in our relationships? Because hurt people hurt. And we need to heal ourselves first so that we can actually show up ready to serve and in whatever capacity that means for you. It's only after embracing your authenticity that you can actually have a real conversations with others. And this is just something that I personally tangibly felt in my life. For the past year, I've been so indulged in self-development that I just cannot imagine my life without it. Brene Brown, again, I'm going to bring her back here because she has another beautiful quote. She was talking about her experience being a social worker. And she said, by the time you're a social worker for 10 years, what you realize is that connection is what we're here. It's what gives purpose and meanings to our lives. This is what it's all about. Connection. The ability to feel connected. It's neurobiologically wired. That's why we're here. So, the last thing I shared in the Let's Talk event is a framework that I dissected by looking at the word real, R-E-A-L. So the word real, in context of dialogue and embracing authenticity in our conversations, goes as such. R, respect the other. E, evaluate their position. A, articulate your points. And L, lose your ego. So this is a framework of having a real conversation, and I'll quickly go over what these points mean. So respecting the other, I mean, it sounds obvious and, it's not rocket science, but it's really good reminder because one of the most human approaches that we can take with others is simply to feel that we are on the same level as them. We can never see ourselves as superior to other. We need to take humility and to actually bring that forward in our interactions with others. Make them feel that they're just one of us and we're one of them. And that's when people sense it and appreciate it. So rather than criticizing people and just forcing your opinions or your thoughts upon them, if you just approach in a calm interaction, it results in meaningful and affirmative dialogue. And that's very important because it prevents the stumbling block of authentic conversations if you're actually disqualifying other people as less important as you are. So it's clearly very important and a cornerstone in approaching a conversation to make sure that you're respecting others. And that's one way to start looking at it. And then you have evaluating their position. I cannot begin to tell you how important that is, but it's much more than just listening to what they're saying. It's really about reading between the lines as well. The speaker usually is using thoughts and feelings, but sometimes it could be easily misinterpreted if we misunderstand what someone is saying. So to evaluate someone's position, you're actually taking the time to ask questions, to reflect on what somebody is talking about, and reading between the lines and putting things in context. So being extremely active about listening, and that's how you properly evaluate where somebody is coming from. So just to, off the cuff here, I just thought of something that I would share that I came across in one of my readings. And it was interesting because it was saying how we, in society, we often address things or address people rather, that you're with me or against me type of approach. Which means if there's a topic that's controversial, we automatically assume, like we take a stand and then the other person, if they take the stand that's on the other side, then they're against us. But rarely do people sit in these extreme type of positions. Usually, we're somewhere in the middle, so we're much closer in the gap that we may have anticipated, because the positions that people take aren't A or B. There's a whole road between A and B that often is left unexplored because of the lack of dialogue and conversations. So I'll just give you a controversial topic on top of my head. Let's say gun control in the US. Big topic, definitely something that drives a lot of conversations. So what's important about that is if you speak to somebody, they automatically take a position. Let's say person A is pro-gun control, person B is anti-gun control. Now, automatically, you're assuming person A and person B are against one another in their opinion on this matter. But then, if you start exploring what person A what guns even mean to person A who is anti-gun control. Maybe guns mean violence, maybe they mean danger, and maybe he's just not comfortable with all these shootings that are taking place. So they're jeopardizing his sense of security. Person B, on the other hand, is actually associates guns with protection and a sense of security. So person A and person B's needs are both security, but they're just looking at guns at a different perspective. But maybe person A is anti-gun control, but he's okay with it if there's certain rules that restrict certain people from having guns, but not necessarily all of them. Person B, on the other hand, could be pro guns. However, he wants certain rules that could be firmer, so that, or exceptions that people cannot have guns in certain situations. So now the gap is closing, because now you're seeing commonalities between their initial extreme positions. Both at the end of the day want the same thing. And maybe if you expand the dialogue, you'll establish a common ground that you didn't even realize exist. So this is what evaluating someone's position is. It's really taking that time to go beyond what you can see on the outside. It's much deeper than that. And often people don't say what they mean, but something I remind myself is mean what you say and say what you mean. But that's really difficult sometimes, because a lot of things are stored in our subconsciousness, and even us as humans, we're not aware of what's actually driving our words and behaviors, let alone someone who's listening to us. So articulating your point, that's when you're actually taking the responsibility to communicate your thoughts and feelings. But one of the impediments to an authentic and meaningful dialogue, in my opinion, is when you're having a conversation and somebody's monopolizing it, which means they're doing the majority of the talk. So one useful tool that I think is actually to concentrate your thoughts in concise manners and making sure you're sticking to 4 sentences. There's actually an idea that came from George Coulter. He's a professor at leadership and organizational behavior in Switzerland, and he talked about the power of authentic dialogue, and he said that using a 4-sentence rule in discussions or team meetings or any type of debate that takes place in a group encourages people to speak in 4 sentences or less, and that pretty much keeps your focus on how to think clearly about what you want to say before you speak, and enhances the understanding and the dialogues, because it forces you to think properly about every single word and to measure the importance of it, given that you have limited sentences to go by. So it's an interesting idea, and I think I try to implement it as much as I can in my own dialogues, but it's something to be mindful of as well. The second you feel that you or someone else is monopolizing the discussion, you realize that the conversation is losing essence because it's not being participatory. So this is it. And the last one is losing your ego. Losing your ego is being okay that, you're not necessarily right all the time. And it's not about being right. It's just about getting the most out of whatever conversation you're in. And sometimes getting the most out of it is realizing that you're wrong, or admitting to yourself that you can agree to disagree. So you might not be right or wrong. It could be a subjective matter that you're discussing. Whatever the case may be, ego can get in the way of so many connections, and sometimes forcing our ego on the side could be helpful in connecting properly with others. So that is all I wanted to share with you today. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you're able to reflect on your own journey. I just shared with you my personal journey, and a glimpse of it, really. I didn't go in much detail, but because I want to offer you space to reflect on your own journey. How did you start embracing your authentic self, if you hopefully have started doing so? What was your childhood like, and are you living your truth today? Are you living up to who you are? And if not, what can you do today to change that? What are the things you can start doing to move you closer to who you are at core? And with that, I will leave you to future episodes where we can learn, grow, and most importantly, get real together. Take care, everybody.